今日は、ウェイン先生にぜひまたお願いしたいと思っております。今日はチェック・ユア・セルフというね、あなた自身のですね、自分自身を振り返り、自分の信仰を点検しようというね、私たちは時々自分の信仰が大丈夫かな、聖書の中にもはっきりね書いてあります。あなた方は、信仰に立っているかどうか自分自身を試し、また吟味しなさい。それともあなた方のうちにはイエス・キリストがおられることを自分で認めないのですか。あなた方がそれに不適格であれば別ですとあるようにですね、自分自身を吟味しなさい、ね、自分の信仰、時々私たちは振り返る必要がありますね。この間も大きな、地震が世界でありましたけれども、そういう地震が起こった時に自分の土台がしっかりしているかどうかね、やっぱり試されますからね。私たちの信仰の歩みの中でやっぱりいろんな試練がやってくることがあります。でもそんな時にしっかりと自分が立つことができるようにですね、この自分の信仰を吟味したいと思います。それではウェイン先生を大きな拍手を持ってお迎えしましょう。お願いします。
Hey, this is my first jump. This is my instructor. First time. Here we go. Ready? Yeah. All right, let's go. Good morning. All right. First time here. Now it says you may be injured or killed.
It's a freeway. The choices that we make, the turns that we must take. It's a freeway.
Hey, John, of all the instructional things that you would say to your students, because this is my first time, I'm a bit nervous, but what are the most essential non-negotiables that you have to have in the bag before you go up?
One I would say first is that your parachute's hooked up correctly and that you're actually inside of it.
Got to be inside of it.
Yeah, you don't want to fall out of your parachute. It does you no good if it's not strapped to you. Two would probably be pulling the parachute open at the correct altitude before you impact the ground. That's kind of important.
Yeah.
And three would probably be the landing. You want to make sure that you're landing yourself correctly so that you can go ahead and repeat the process as many times as you want.
Well, I think I got it all checked out.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, we're ready.
All right, let's do it.
All right, let's go.
What are like the top 2-3 things that are most important to you in life?
Happiness, definitely. Family.
Health. Health is the key to life.
What's most important to me is more like inner peace.
With poor health, you don't enjoy anything.
The most important things in my life are my family,
Feeling fulfilled.
my job,
Family.
my home.
Personal wealth.
When I started my business, I had a bit of a drive to get ahead.
You know, just making sure the people around me are happy. Making sure that I do things every day that not only will make me happy, but hopefully impact other people. So those kind of things.
Life is so important, enjoy every second, every moment. Because we only live once.
Talk to a friend, turn the music down low. Oh, you can't forget all the beautiful sights. Don't turn left, you got to turn right.
Anyone that knows the risks of skydiving also know that anything that's important will require certain non-negotiables or checkpoints that must be in place without a doubt. Not something you wonder about or worry about or even uncertain about. For example, no one would jump from an airplane without certain things being checked and rechecked. But the funny thing is that many enter life, marriage, start a family without knowing what must absolutely be in place without question. And then we wonder why the statistics are so dismal. But the Bible doesn't leave us in the dark when it comes to these things. In fact, it specifically identifies what we must check. In fact, in 2 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 5, we find these words. Let's read it together. Test yourselves to see if you are in the faith. Examine yourselves. Well, today we're going to talk about the third thing we must do for ourselves. Examine yourself, or check yourself to be sure that you're walking in the faith. 2 Corinthians chapter 13 identifies two basic non-negotiables, resolute and unshakable checkpoints that must all be in good working condition, not as options, not things we hope are in order, but ones that we have down pat, second nature, confidently in place. Not maybes, but for certains, because these two will affect everything else. This test begins with a vertical relationship, and then, as another checks and balance, the second tests our commitment to truth. Let's start at the beginning. The first, let's read together what it says. Do you not recognize this about yourselves, that Jesus Christ is in you, unless indeed you fail the test? Here's the first absolute, an immovable relationship with Christ. No, not just believing about God. It goes beyond that. This is one relationship that will affect every other. It's the most important relationship that must be kept in good working condition, healthy and genuine. You know, you can tell what is most important to God by recognizing what the devil works hardest to attack. And his greatest target is to separate you from Christ. Because when he does, every other decision becomes negotiable. A firm, resolute relationship with you and Jesus must be at the center of everything. When that goes out of balance, everything else will too. Let me tell you a story. Some years ago, I was asked to speak at a chapel in one of the most technologically advanced prisons on the West Coast. I was instructed where I was supposed to park and then go to a certain side door. And when I arrived, I noticed that there was a button to push, so I pushed it. And an unseen voice came over a speaker that was adjacent to the surveillance camera right by the door. And then his voice said, "Are you the chaplain that's speaking today?" And I replied, "Yes." "May I see your driver's license, please?" And I thought, well, who do I show it to? Just then he said, "Just show it to the camera." I thought, well, this is strange. So I showed it to the camera, and when he was satisfied that everything was in order, he said, "Just follow the opening doors." And I thought, the opening doors? And sure enough, right in front of me, the first door just opened. So I walked through. I went down a hallway, and then an elevator door opened, so I figured I should get in. And when I got in, there were no buttons on the wall. Just then, this elevator started to go upward, and it stopped at the correct floor at the chapel. I mean, it just went up, and I thought, Star Trek, this is crazy. And right across the hallway, another door opened. And it was the chapel with the inmates waiting. And over the speaker, I heard the unseen voice again say, "Have a good service." This was really strange. Well, after the service, the assistant warden asked me if I wanted to go see the control room where this invisible voice came from. And of course I did. So we walked down these endless corridors into the innermost chambers until we saw this bulletproof enclosed glass room with the most sophisticated monitors watching every single door in the whole place. 4 men were opening and closing doors, controlling elevators, controlling the lights, even the heat in this place. Now, this room was impenetrable and unassailable. And I thought for a moment, boy, if the wrong person got into this room, it would be all over. The only way, however, that the doors could be opened were from the inside. Later on, I was thinking, when you come to Christ, it's the same way. The Bible says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. And if anyone on the inside hears my voice and opens the door, I will then come in." Then we accept him and we welcome him in, and he guides us. You do it together. It's a relationship where every area of your life is controlled, not by just you, but by Christ guiding you. Another way to look at this is like a bullseye or a target. And we're going to take a look. I'm actually going to draw a target for you with concentric circles that are radiating outward. Come. In a bullseye or a target, your primary or the center focus or relationship must be you and Jesus. And then in these concentric circles that radiate outwards might be your marriage or your family or your health or your job or your money. Now, here's what the devil wants to do. He's going to try and dethrone Jesus, but he doesn't force his way in. He convinces you that the most important thing to be in that circle is not Jesus. No, it might be money. That would be your greatest goal in life, because if you have that, then everything will be fine. Or maybe success, or not losing face, or maybe even family. But once that core relationship is displaced, and maybe you move Jesus out to here as something that's been deprioritized, then this, which should have been a non-negotiable, now becomes something that is negotiable. And money becomes something that becomes the goal in life. Now, when the devil has separated you from this relationship that should be so core and displaces it with success, then he's got you where he wants you. Now, if you've got Jesus way out here in an outer circle, like something that's negotiable, because other things are more important, then you know the devil's got you right where he wants you. And everything else he says, you got money in there, success, or not losing face, or pride, or a certain woman, or whatever it might be, then that's fine, because you can have all of that, because once he's got this, a natural regression takes place. But listen to this. Even if the outward circles fall away and Jesus is here, this might fall away, your job or money. And this might fall away, even your health, or this might be taken away, or even this. So long as you say, in the end, Jesus in me is enough. In fact, here's the whole book of Job. You see, Job lost everything. This was taken away, his money, his property, his family, his health, even his spouse. But regardless, he refused to give up the central, most important, non-negotiable in his life. He refused that. In fact, the central verse of the book of Job is Job 13:15. You remember that? Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. So in the end, because he kept that, and refused to let anyone into that control room because it was reserved for Jesus or for God, in the end, because of his faith, God restored everything back to him. In fact, twice as much. This has to be something that, regardless of whether or not everything is taken away, can you hold on to that? Let me ask you a question that was once asked of me. Is Jesus enough? If everything else were taken away, would Jesus be enough? For a while, it wasn't for me. I remember him asking me that question. And when he said, am I enough? You know, I could not answer that question. Maybe you're the same. Because for me, it was, well, Jesus plus money, or Jesus plus success, or more stuff, then I'll be happy. For some people, Jesus plus a good woman, or a new car, or a better job, or success. You see, you can't fit multiple things in that bullseye. One. Some don't realize that Jesus is all they need until they're sitting in prison and they've lost everything else, or maybe in a hospital, or maybe in the poorhouse, or when they have nothing left. Then, as I say, we don't realize that Jesus is all we need until Jesus is all we've got. And when you find yourself at the bottom and you realize that Jesus is all you need, listen, here it is. When you understand that and come to grips with that, when you're back at the top, don't forget that lesson. Because you'll get duped, just like you were in the first place. You'll think that you're bulletproof when everything is going well and money's flowing in and you're healthy. When you've got that babe on your arm or that hunk making goo-goo eyes over you thinking that you're just the best ever. Listen, It doesn't matter if you're way on the top of the mountain. Keep your relationship with Jesus as your greatest goal in life. No, not money or a big score on a deal or some other relationship or position with your boss or being taken care of by some guy. Don't compromise, because once you do, it doesn't matter. Your days will be numbered. So don't displace that anywhere. Keep that strong. That's impenetrable. That's the control room of your life. That's why the Bible says, watch over your heart with all diligence, for out of it flows the issues of life. The first non-negotiable is your relationship with Jesus. Everything else can be taken away, like Job. But in the end, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. That's the first. That's the first harness that has to be checked and rechecked. And then you'll have confidence to move forward. The next non-negotiable that we must be checking for ourselves on is, how open are we to truth? Let's read together what it says in the 8th verse. Now we pray to God that you may do what is right. For we can do nothing against the truth, but only for the truth. You see, one of the greatest axioms of life that helps us to grow is the commitment we make to discovering new truths and deliberately turning away from falsehoods. For example, you can't take a shortcut through the land of make-believe on your way to reality. You've got to make a commitment to what the truth is, no matter how difficult or how unpleasant it may seem to be at that time. See, you can't solve problems if you don't admit they exist. For example, you can't achieve a fulfilling career if you won't admit that the current job you're in, that's not right. How can you improve on your relationship with others if you can't admit that your pride or stubbornness is ruining possibilities? Or how can you better your health if you can't admit the truth about your eating habits or that you've not been eating well? Now, I'm not saying that accepting the truth alone is enough to guarantee success, but siding with falsehood is enough to guarantee failure. Here's a basic. In order to be committed to the truth, you've got to see life clearly. See truth clearly. Listen to what Jesus said in Matthew 6:22. He said this, "The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye is clear, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. And if therefore the light that is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness?" You see, God is speaking here not about our eyeballs when he says the lamp of your body is the eye. He's talking about how we see things, our perception about life or circumstances. If you want to improve an aspect of your life, you first must see it clearly. If you want to have an optimum marriage or friendships, you must be able to be committed to the truth and see things clearly. So you ask, how can we be sure that how we're seeing something is clear or is the truth? Psalm 119, verse 160 says, "Thy word is truth, and the sum thereof." In other words, you don't have to wonder about what the truth is. The Bible has written it down as to what is truth. Now, some people say, I know, but I know some people that make the Bible say whatever they want it to say. Yeah, that's right. Those who figure that the truth is how they interpret it or how they craft it or spin it in their favor. I know. But here's an important fact about seeing truth. I have found that it's not just those who read the Bible that will begin to discern truth. It's not those who have certain pet scriptures down. No, they can be deceived. It's those, here's what I found, it's those who have a consistent reading of the Bible. Those are the ones that have a clearer view. See, sometimes we dive into the Bible when we hit a dead end or when I'm sitting behind bars or when my marriage falls apart. Then I'll read for a little while. And then I go to church and then things slowly get better. And when they do, I've got other things to do and I start to compromise again. But here's what I found. Those who are consistent in reading the Bible, when they're in the valley or when they're on the mountaintop, when they're on welfare or in affluence, when things are going their way or even when they are not, when they're in joy or in pain, when the job is going well or not going well, the ones that are constantly reading the Bible are the ones where truth is worked into the fabric of their souls, and the truth begins to guide them and keeps them from being easily deceived. And they start to see things clearly. You see, we can be deceived not just by the devil or by other people, we can also be deceived by ourselves because of our perception. We're seeing things wrong. Let me encourage you to make daily devotion something that's steady regardless of what's going on. It's one thing that will increase your commitment to the truth, and it'll help you to recognize falsehood. A final way to be sure that the truth that you're seeing is not a false truth is through accountability. Because sometimes we just got to recalibrate our sights. I will sometimes share a plan with, let's say, an elder in my life, and then ask them after I share it, I say, does this sound like God to you? Because you see, we all need objective eyes from time to time, especially when ours may be clouded. Read this next verse with me. Obey your leaders and submit to them, for they keep watch over your souls as those who will give an account. Let them do this with joy and not with grief, for this would be unprofitable for you. See, God is talking here about spiritual leaders, pastors and elders, because they keep watch over your soul to give an account. And did you catch that last phrase? Let them give it with joy and not with sorrow, because it would be unprofitable, not for them, but for you. Some time ago, I knew a man who had just at that time recently become a Christian. Now, he had been growing marijuana back in the hills and on the Big Island. He was making tons of money off of it. Then after several months after having become a Christian, he decided to just keep right on growing and selling. And I brought him in for some counseling, and I said, hey, it's time for you to get a new job. And he looked at me and said, well, I feel the Lord has gifted me in this agricultural gift of growing things, and I have a peace about it. And I said to him, gifted you nothing. It's wrong and you need to stop. And you got a piece, all right. It's a piece missing. Stop growing the stuff and change. But strange, he felt he didn't need to listen because he just listened to God. But what he thought was God was not really God at all. It was his own desire for more money. And with that desire, this is what he did. He molded a God and then said, God said. False God. It wasn't long before he got caught, not my fault, and he spent a lot of time thinking about it. You know, we can learn so much from people who have had a close brush with death, or those who maybe have, like Job, lost it all. They now know that in the middle is God. Jesus is all we need. And they have lost it all to come to grips with that realization. We can learn a lot from them before we lose it all and have to sit behind bars and think about it for a while. And how often have I sat with people in their last moments of life, and they have no secrets, you know? They just come to grips with the truth. People that they've offended, they want to get it right. No more pretense, no more ignoring or denying what is truth. We've got to learn a lot from these kind of people. It's sort of like this. Let's say you're cruising in an airplane at 32,000 feet, and everything is fine. You're having a party. Everything is great. But all of a sudden, the engine sputters, and you start to nosedive. And that thing goes into a dive, and then you start to realize, my life is done. I'm finished. We don't know what to do. And then you know what happens? When you're just going towards Earth, you start getting a really good relationship with God, don't you? All of a sudden, God is real. God, whatever you want me to do, I'll do. I'm ready. And then when this plane is just brushing the earth and the pilot's pulling those controls back and you're barely starting to come back up, boy, I tell you, your prayer life is wonderful. You love God. You're as close as you'll ever be. And anything God wants you to do, you'll do. You make some great commitments. But then let's say God brings that plane back up and you're flying now at 32,000 feet and everything is fine. You wipe your brow and think, man, that was close. Listen to this. When you're flying back at 32,000 feet, don't forget the commitments you made at 2 feet. Because those will help you to remember what is non-negotiable. And you won't be ever caught off guard. So, before you launch into any relationship or anything else, check yourself and make sure that you've got those things in the bag. Your relationship with God, which is at the middle of that bullseye, and you have a commitment to truth, because when God shows you truth, then you'll be able to walk forward and even improve. And you'll have the confidence to be all that you can be. Check yourself to see if you're in the faith. When you are, you'll fly right. I think I got it all checked out.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, we're ready.
All right, let's do it.
All right, let's go. Checks out. Time has come. I've got my harness on, my helmet, my altimeter. Everything is ready. Here we go. I tell you, when you got everything down and everything's hooked up correctly, not only will you fly right, you'll land right. Whew, that was fun. Man.
Wow. いやー、すごかったスカイダイビングしたことあるっていう人いらっしゃいます？どうですか？ねえ、すごいね。本当に分かりやすかったですね、実際にね。今日のですね、メッセージノートのポイントですけども、1番目のポイント、それはキリストとの不動の関係と。キリストっていう言葉をそこにどうぞ入れてください。キリストとの不動の関係ですね。で、2番目はですね、真理にどれだけ自分自身を開いているかという、真理にどれだけ自分自身を開いているかというね、ことでしたね。まずその今のこのスカイダイビングのね、あれでこう飛行機に乗るときに、まず何をチェックするのかって聞いてましたよね。そしたらそのちゃんとこのパラシュートの紐がちゃんとつながってるかどうかを確認しないといけないって。そうですよね。飛んだら紐が切れてたら大変ですからね。 ですからそれがしっかりとつながっているっていうこと、それが大事だということでしたね。それから、もう一つはそのパラシュートを、と自分の体がねちゃんとつながってるっていうことですよね。で最後は3つ目はその、着地が上手にできるかどうかっていうね。着地も大事ですね。やっぱりね、確かにあれだけ勢いよく落ちてくるんですからね、かなりすごいなと思いますが。でウェン先生が言ってたのはその私たちのクリスチャン生活の中で、的の話をしてましたね。こう的でその真ん中に、真ん中にイエス様が来ないといけない、ね、でその次が家族だったり経済だったり仕事だったりいろんなものがこうその周りにつながってくるわけですね。でもサタンはこのイエス様をこの中心からずらそうとする。私たちの考えの中の中心がイエス様じゃないよ、ね、お金だよとかね、何々だよとか、そういうふうにして私たちの人生の中心をイエス様から外そうとする。それは非常にサタンの策略ですね。サタンはうまく巧妙に私たちに、ほらお金がなかったら大変だろお前、ね、もう神様いたってお前生活できないだろうみたいな、どんどんこう気持ちをイエス様からずらしていくように、そのようにしてサタンは私たちの中心からイエス様をずらそうと外そうとするというね、そういうことを言ってましたね。でヨブっていう人は自分がたとえ殺されても、神によって自分は殺されてもなおも自分は神様をこう信じているっていうふうにヨブは言いましたね。神が私を殺しても私は神を待ち望み、なおも私の道を神の前に主張しようというふうに言っています。でもう一つの御言葉は、力の限り見張ってあなたの心を見守れ、命の泉はこれから湧くというふうに言われました。ヨブはね、家族を失って、奥さんも奥さんはまだいたかもしれませんが、そして健康も失って、もう全てを失ってしまった。しかしヨブは自分の人生の中の中心であるイエス様から絶対離れなかった。それをいつも握りしめていたというね。だからそれさえあればなんとかなる。もうあと全部失ってもこれさえあればというね。これさえあれば、これがイエス様だよっていうことを言ってましたね。でもう一つ刑務所の話をしてましたけども、ウェイン先生刑務所でメッセージしたことあるそうですね。で行った時に、ウェイン先生がこう行くとエレベーターが開いて乗るんですけども、ボタンがついてないでね、そしてまず声が聞こえてきて、そしてその免許証を見せてくださいって言って、免許証をこうやって見せて、でドアが開いた方に出て行ってくださいっていうふうにして、それがバーッと上がっていって、どっかでドアが開く、そして出て行って、またドアが開いたらそこに行くっていう、そういう感じでね行く。で最後にそこの刑務所の人がコントロールセンターを見たいですかって、それでウィン先生も見に行きたいですって言って見に行ったね。そのコントロール室で全部を調節するわけですね。エレベーターのことも何もかも、ドアを閉めたり全部それをする。だからそのコントロール室にもし悪いやつが入ってきたらもうめちゃくちゃになってしまうんですね。だから絶対にここには悪いやつは入れてはいけないっていうね、そういう話でした。ですから私たちの人生、心のコントロールセンターに絶対悪いものを入れちゃいけないし、だからイエス様をしっかりと中心に入れなければいけないよっていうね、そういうことでした。ですから大事なのはイエス様と自分のこの不動の関係だ。 揺るぎない関係、もう何があっても私はイエス様から離れないっていう、それくらいの強いね意志を持っていないといけないよっていうことですね。でもう一つは、その真理にどれだけこの自分自身を開いているかっていうことでしたね。つまり真理っていうのは御言葉が真理だと聖書に書いてあります。ですから真理はどこにあるんだっていうことではなくて、御言葉はもうすでに真理だよっていうことですね。で御言葉をじゃあ読んでれば必ずその真理の道をねまっすぐに行けるのか、聖書を読んでても間違える人もいるんじゃないか、確かにそういう人もいるでしょう、ね、ですけれども御言葉を毎日読んでる人は真理をしっかりと握る確率が高まるっていうことですよね。だから御言葉を読んでない人から見たら、はるかに御言葉をちゃんと読んでる人は間違いなく正しい道にこう行くことができる。たとえこう間違った方に行ってもまた戻す力もあるわけですからね。戻ってくる力もあるわけで、ですから御言葉をちゃんと持たないといけない。せっかく聖書が言っててもそれを聞こうとしないならばね、真理に対してね、そういう心を閉じているっていう場合がありますよね。パリサイ人たちはイエス様がせっかく真理の言葉を話しても、彼らは心を閉ざして受け入れようとしませんでしたね。ですから私たちは真理に対して本当に心を開いて受け入れるっていう、そういう心が必要ですっていうね。今日はこの2つのことね、とっても大事な2つのことについてウェイン先生話してくださいました、ね。ぜひご自分でもこのね聞いた御言葉を振り返りながら、そうだ自分はちゃんとこの自分のパラシュートちゃんとつながってるかどうか、イエス様にちゃんとつながってるだろうかっていうね、それをもう一度確認して自分の信仰が今大丈夫だね、大丈夫かどうか、そしてもし分からなくなったら大丈夫なのかな自分はって、そういうような時にどうぞ牧師とかリーダーの人にねと話をして相談してくださいとウェイン先生も言ってましたね。指導者たちはその霊的な見張りをする人たちですから、皆さんの霊的状態についていつもこう見て見守っているから、何か自分の中でなんか最近おかしいんだよね、今こんな状態なんだよね、どうしたらいいんだろうとかね、どうも霊的にこうダウンしてるとか停滞してるんだよねとかね、いろんな状況あるでしょう。でもそんな時にどうぞ、牧師とかリーダーに聞いて相談して、今自分の心は大丈夫でしょうかっていうね、そういうふうに、また祈ってもらうというね、そういうことも必要ですよっていうことですね。はい、